I just want to give a short gist of the teachings for people that don't know about the house around this path. Basically, the path consists of meditation, bhajan, simran, and sadhana, which is the practice that the Guru gives a person right when they travel this path. It's not a religion. It's a little different from religion. Religion mostly is geared toward a person studying the scriptures and praying a lot. This path consists of meditation, turning all your attention from the outside inward. Because we say that, in all religions say the same thing, that God is inside of you. You know, this path is geared to finding God in you. So that's basically what we do with our meditation. We try to turn all our attention from the outside and turn it within, and see God within ourselves. We are strict vegetarians. We don't eat meat. It's not from the health point of view. It's from the spiritual point of view. We believe in karma and which is harmlessness. And we try to take life from the least amount of form of life that creates a certain amount of suffering. For instance, like a plant, we eat a lot of vegetables and things like that because consciousness in that form suffers a little less than an animal. And so the karma is less. And so for that reason, we take the vegetarian diet. In this world, in this creation, we got to live off something. So we try to take that form of life to feed on that causes the least amount of suffering. The Guru is this path. I mean, without the Guru ain't no path. You know, I want to make that clear to you all because I know a lot of people have their own belief systems and a lot of faith in dead mystics, such as Christ or the prophet or Buddha or so forth. But without the living teachers, there's nothing you can get. A dead master can't help you. Can't teach you how to live, can't teach you how to practice, can't give you no insights. You know. Very easily path. You know, the path is more long than hard. You know, I don't see anything too much hard about it. The meditation, people say it's hard, but if you knew the benefits of meditation, then it wouldn't be hard at all. It would be easy. You know, I don't know too much else to say about this path. It's a real simple path, you know, to travel. There's nothing hard about it. Or maybe I can talk about it more if you guys ask me some questions. You know, so I'll open it up for some questions. I'll try to answer them for you. That way you probably can get a better understanding of this path. So anybody have any questions, feel free to ask.
I think some time ago, the Guru mentioned something that I thought about over this past week, maybe it was last week. It's attitude. It's about, you know, if you bring the right attitude, then it helps. Could you talk a little bit about attitude?
What I used to always say, you know, that it's not so much what you do, it's your attitude towards doing that. You know, he always said, leave the results in the master's hand. You know, a lot of people, when the Guru asks them to do a certain thing, say, or a spiritual practice or something like that, or their meditation, something in them just weak, or they don't want to do it, they withdraw from that process. Right? But your attitude toward that should be, well, I'm going to do this to please the master. Your attitude goes a long way on this path. If, say for instance, if you're doing all of these things, right, and you regret to do it, you see, that's the wrong attitude Even though you do, you won't get no benefit out of it because your heart is not in it. And you can just do a little of the sadhana, but you got the right attitude when you're doing it, right? Even though it's not perfect, it's not up to par. I think that you derive more benefits from that because you're trying to please the master. We all should have that attitude of pleasing. And whatever he asks us to do, we should do that. Yeah, your attitude plays a major role in all of it. Some people want to do it, some people don't do it, but they do it anyway because they don't want to look bad. They want to have a certain image of themselves, so they do it anyway. That's not the right attitude. The attitude should be there to please him. Because it's for your benefit. You really have an attitude towards something, it's because you really don't want to do it. When somebody asks you to do something you don't want to do, you get attitude. You may do it anyway, you know what I'm saying? But you still have attitude, and you're not doing it, out of the right posture. You ain't doing it from your heart. You're just doing it because somebody asked you to do it. You don't want them to be on you about it, so let me do it so I ain't got to hear about it later. Attitude. So that plays a major part in it. Any other questions?
Sardar-Ji, can you say a little something about the role of the master?
Role of the master. The master he had three functions, right? One is to bring you the Dharma. And the second is to demonstrate for you how you should live the spiritual life, to show you what it is to be loving and kind and all of those virtues. But I think that the most important role of the guru is to motivate you. You hear the master talk about a lot that most of us don't have enough motivation to practice. That's the role of the guru, to motivate you to practice your sadhana. That's to me is the greatest role that the guru could play, is to motivate you by you saying the demonstration, of his living. And you see him, he give workshop, he do one-on-ones and he practice. Take our time with his family. He's showing you what it is that you have to do to live in this world and still practice. So when a person talk about I ain't got time to practice, but yet and all the guru does all these things and more, and still is able to practice, right? That's the demonstration, and the motivation is the satsans, the teachers. To get you to practice, I think that's the greatest siddha is his power to get you to practice. Now, all these teachings are great teachings. Now, how is it that we understand these teachings? They profound. It's the guru that makes you understand this stuff. You think you understanding this with your intellect. It's his power. That's what they call his siddha, to make you understand the Dharma. Otherwise, we all be confused about the teachings. You hear people come up in here and they hear them talk, use terminology. They can't understand that. But if they keep coming and keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, they will be able to understand that, because that's one of his gifts, to make your mind interpret this. It's some deep stuff. So that's the three roles of the guru, right? To motivate you, to practice. Because outside of that, there's nothing else. If you're not practicing and you're not doing, you're making religion out this path. And this teaching is not a religious path. It's a practical path. It's based on your practice and self-observation. It's not a religion at all. It's to motivate you, right? To give you the Dharma, bring us the teachings, and to demonstrate how you live. We need to see that. We don't know how to be spiritual, none of us. Only way we know how to be spiritual, we got to observe the Guru, see what he doing, see how he living, see how he interacting with his family, and his friends, and his job, and making a living, and still is able to practice.
So you also want to say the thing also that separates this path from religion is you're given a method to reconnect yourself to God. That's what separates it all out. So you got to give importance to that. Meditation is the method. And if the Guru cannot lift you up with a method that can duplicate the experience of enlightenment, then there is no difference between that and religion. Because preachers motivate. Some preachers try to be an example. So the real difference is the method to link yourself to produce enlightenment.
Something you would like to discuss? Anything you're most welcome to ask. Sardar-Ji.
Before we came in, someone was asking me a question about this pathway to victory, the difference between the two. This was mentioned that religion doesn't offer taking from methodology, the spiritual attainment, self-realization. I didn't get a chance to answer that, so you can elaborate on that.
Who asked the question?
I was making a statement.
It was a statement. Don't count. You see, religion as it is ordinarily understood and pursued by most people, is simply a form of consolation. It is a strategy, if you will, to somehow find a solution to one's personal suffering, misery, and lack of fulfillment. Having failed to be able to console oneself via the means of money, food, sex, bodily comforts, relationships, the pursuit of information, so forth and so on. Eventually a person comes to a point of desperation. What to do? Now one has sought for some kind of comfort, some kind of relief and release from their chronic condition of unhappiness in the world, and they have failed. And then they begin to turn away from the world towards God. And now they pursue God, a relationship with God. They look toward God to give them something to hold on to, something to relieve their suffering, their pain, their misery. They seek in God that which they were not able to find in the world. It is a part of the whole process, you see. Religion, then, is this turning toward God for purposes of finding and attaining some consolation. And remember, ordinarily, most of us have a concept of God that is really nothing more than the projection of our own parents. God the Father, God the Mother, etc., etc. And our relationship with God is just like that of a child with a parent. It is turning toward the parent now and asking, depending for those very things it needs to sustain its life and existence. Prayer becomes a petition, a demand, if you will, directed to God to do something that will relieve my suffering, my sorrow, my pain. Therefore, its purpose is not to transcend the ego, which is the cause of all your problems in the first place. Rather, religion is a means of trying to fulfill your egoic ambitions. Not only in this life, but for all time to come. You also want to make sure that even after this body has dropped, that your ego will still be able to be satisfied to the point of completion in paradise forever and ever. Amen. You want no interruption with your pleasures. So this is ordinarily the motive out of which we turn toward God in the form of religion. It is another form of ego. It is more egoic. It is still not that which can be called spiritual. And there's a vast distinction between spirituality and religion. Spirituality has as its goal the transcendence of ego, the transcendence of the felt sense of self and separation from God. It is a very different approach. Hence, in spirituality and mysticism, one will always encounter then a set of disciplines, a methodology, if you will, that aims toward the transcendence of this ego, this very thing in you that is constantly craving for some form or fashion of fulfillment. This very thing in you that is the cause of the suffering itself. Spirituality goes to the heart of the problem, which is you. Your unhappiness, your misery is your own activity. It is something that you are doing to yourself. Spirituality, then, is to awaken and realize that this is the case. Spirituality is to come to the realization that one has never been separate from God in the first place. The search for God is rooted in the presumption that you are first separated from God. How can that be the case? It is then from this feeling of separation, abandonment, if you will. God has abandoned me. God has forgotten all about me. Has set me adrift in this vast phenomena that is existence, alone, helpless, at the mercy of all kinds of things, events, circumstances. And out of this feeling of abandonment and separation, you see, one begins to flee. But the reality, you see, is that you have never been separated from God. That is not possible. Wherever there is existence, there is God. In fact, existence exists in the context that is called God. God is the very context in which all experiences, both gross and subtle, is occurring. So the question of your separation from God is not the issue. The problem is the loss of your realization of this oneness with God. And originally that was the purpose of religion. Religion in the truest sense of the word really means to relink, relegare, to reunite, to reconnect with this oneness. It has the same literal meaning as the word yoga, to reyoke. Religion did, in its original form, was the means by which a person could recover one's awareness of the oneness with God. And with that awareness, with that realization, comes the experience now of bliss, of paradise, of heaven, of unlimited, unfeathered, unfathomable bliss. What the mystics have called Ananda. However, unfortunately, when the adepts and gurus who sets this whole realization and process and makes it available for others to partake in, when those adepts are no longer alive, when a Christ the great mystic is no longer here, or a Buddha, or a Mahavir, or a Kabir, or a Dadu, a Muhammad, a Bev Shem Tov, a Baha'u'llah. When these great teachers are no longer in the body, then their teachings are turned into dogma, doctrines, a belief system, and deteriorates to what is ordinarily understood as religion. Now, this is not religion. This is superstition. This is childishness masquerading in the name of religion. You see? So it's a misnomer to call that which you are referring to religion in the first place, because it is not religion. It is the organized and collective deception that people practice on themselves for purposes of consoling themselves. Achakufu.
You said songs ago that very few people throughout the history have practiced spirituality versus religion. I always wondered why
that spirituality, because it involved the literal transcendence of ego, this experience of the transcendence of ego is like a death. It is like dying. In fact, Maharaji used to call it dying while living. And for the vast majority of us, to pursue spirituality is to commit suicide. And we're not capable of that level of sacrifice. You see my point? In religion, no sacrifice is required. Now you remember a few scriptures, a few surahs, a few gospels, a few quotes from this mystic or that or that. No change is required, Kufu. No sacrifice, no transcendence, no real spiritual process needs to be engaged. Now you can talk about religion, but it's just talk. And by that talk, yes, you're able to get some momentary relief from your suffering. You're able to delude yourself for a few moments. But then that evaporates and it wears off. But you're not willing to do more than that. So therefore, you're satisfied at that level. At least your ego remains intact, and that's the bottom line. You see, that's the real deal. But in spirituality, now this is not the case. You must truly enter into the self-sacrificing ordeal that is sadhana, that is spirituality. And that will be like a death blow to the ego. Because the ego does not want to be interfered with. It does not want to be interrupted. And is in this pursuit of happiness, or what it calls happiness, what it thinks happiness is, which fundamentally, Kufu, is simply pleasurizing the body. What we are calling happiness, you see, is nothing more than this pursuit of food and sex. That is all. And that is a pure egoic activity. And in the spiritual arena, you will have to discipline these very two things. And this begins to become the problem. Now, when you encounter a mystic, the first thing he will do is impose restrictions and disciplines on food and diet. That's the first thing. That's the minimum condition that will be imposed, you see. And we can't handle that. Because what will I do without my food and my sex? Ordinarily, humanity can be divided into these two categories. Those who are awake and those who are asleep. Those who are conscious, spiritually mature, and those who are spiritually immature. And their behavior is distinguished by the fact that those who are spiritually asleep, Kufu, are lost in this pursuit of either food or sex. Now, food becomes their primary source of pleasure in life. Now, food is such a small thing. It only delivers pleasure at the level of your tongue. But millions of people live simply to eat. And when they fail to achieve the lasting happiness that they seek in their eating, they now will turn to sex. You see. Sex becomes the principal means and strategy by which they are able to relieve themselves of the stress, tension, and agony of their hopelessly unhappy and unfulfilling existence. Sex for the unenlightened, unconscious, asleep individual is like sneezing. It gives some momentary relief. But then again, the agony accumulates and more sex becomes required to the point of addiction. In spirituality, you see, this whole pattern of the ego is interrupted. And there's much suffering. There is something in you that will simply recoil from the opportunity that is spiritual. Now, if a Christ the Great Mystic was here, none of you Christians will follow. Please make a note of that. Because Christ the great mystic would impose a discipline beyond the level of talk Christianity. If the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was here, you could not follow. You can follow the Quran because it's easy. You can follow the Bible because it's easy. You can put your own interpretations on the great master's teaching. But when Jesus is here in the flesh, now you cannot do that. You see. Now Jesus will be like a death unto you, will be like fire, will shake you up out of your ego. And you will simply, like those who were contemporary to him, call for his death. You will not be a Mahakasyapa or a Sariputta sitting at the feet of a Buddha. You are not made out of that. You see? This then, Khufu, becomes the greatest distinction between the spiritual path and the path of religion. The spiritual path, you're going to have to do something more than talk about it. Philosophizing, metaphysics are inadequate on the path is about the transcendence of ego. Everything else is bullshit. Now this is so. And you know that, Khufu, firsthand, right? You know from your own experiences, the struggles, the challenges. All the kinds of excuses that your mind put to you for the avoidance of truly engaging in a serious way the process of ego transcendence. You know that firsthand. You just wanted to hear me say it.
I just wanted to go more in detail.
Yes, brother.
When you are at a level of peace and contentment, what internal process is going on inside of you?
Oh, man. You asked a big question. That's why they all laughing. They've been trying to find the answer. These people have been looking for years for that kind of answer. I tell brother, it's a very, very long discussion. And even if we talk years about it, we will still not accurately describe what that experience is like. You see? Some of the mystics, when asked that questions, have simply replied, nete, 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 nete. Not this, not that, not anything you can imagine. Swamiji Maharaj, a great mystic, said, it is just wondrous, wondrous, wondrous. That was all he could say. It is just wondrous, that which goes on. You see. Not much can be said about it. However, hopefully within the next week, Dharma Maharaj, we should have a scripture available that focuses in on this whole business about happiness. I am calling it the Ra Ananda Sutra, the teachings on divine happiness. Make sure you get your copy. Acha Sardar-Ji?
Yeah, before you came in, Mahaseva was asking me a question about the role of the guru. And I mentioned three fundamental things about the role of the guru. One was to motivate. The other was to be that vehicle. And the third one was to demonstrate. I didn't get a chance to really explain that. Maybe you can go into that a little bit.
You're going to make me do all your work, Sardar? Then what are you going to do? Just sit there and relax and enjoy yourself. Mahaseva knows all these things. I understand. You see, we had talked a little bit about this last time. Bilal must have a paper from all of that. In a nutshell, what the guru function is to simply bring you, make you aware, or make such awareness of reality available to you. The function of the guru is to provide satsang, the opportunity for us to encounter truth, come into an association with truth, and then stand free and allow you to respond accordingly to that revelation. The guru's function is to reveal through word and deed, example, the revelation of the means by which one can attain this condition of unlimited, unfathomable bliss. That is the whole function. In addition, the guru also becomes instrumental in the actual practice of the sadhana, the spiritual progress that brings one into the realization of that condition. We would simply have to go into more detail. There's some details about it all that is privy only to those who have been initiated, as you well know. And the level of answer that you are seeking can only be discussed within the privacy of the gathering of just those of us who are formally on the path. And then we can get into the kind of depth that will be useful. Okay? Anything else you would like to discuss?
You spoke of how pleasure is something you get from food and sex, and I wanted you to talk about the difference between pleasure and happiness, because from my understanding, looking at my experiences, it seems like I can elicit pleasure from things outside of that, just experiences, parties, whatever.
Yes.
That's more pleasurable. So would you talk about the difference and any similarities between pleasure and happiness?
Yes. You see, pleasure, first of all, is always dependent in condition. Now you have to go to the party, otherwise you cannot have the experience that you're calling pleasure. Now you have to eat the food, otherwise you cannot have that experience that you're calling pleasure. Actually, you're calling it happiness, because you don't know what happiness is. You see, it is the real name of it is pleasure. But so all of the things that you are calling happiness, but which is in fact simply pleasure, is dependent in condition. It is occurring in time and space. Right? You have no control over it. Right? It is temporary, and Shakti Devi, it is minimal. It never allows you to feel as good as you want to feel about it. Right? You are never able to feel unlimitedly happy and totally fulfilled via the route of pleasure. At any level of pleasure, bodily or emotional or mental, because there are pleasurable pursuits at all of these levels. Now I have mentioned money, food, and sex, and those are the principal objects that we pursue in order to achieve pleasure at the level of the body. And this encompasses the vast majority of mankind and womankind. This is their principal strategy for achieving, finding what they are mistakenly calling happiness, but in reality is simply this momentary minimum experience of pleasure. Then there are other ways of also pursuing pleasure that involves the emotion part of yourself. The pursuit of relationships. Now you will look for some man, some woman to add to your money, food, and sex. Right? To step it up a notch. To intensify the experience. And the hope is that you will be able to do that and thereby go to a whole nother level of happiness. Unfortunately, it never happens, because even the pleasure that you are able to find in relationships is also minimal and temporary and short-lived. And then it simply turns into its polar opposite, misery. Now, this same person that you thought would just make your life blissful now is the source of hell for you. You see, you can't wait to get away from it. You even hate going home. You understand? Bear in mind that all of these kinds of ways of pleasing ourselves are occurring within the world of duality, and therefore are subject to the laws of opposites. And just as night must follow day, death must follow birth, in the same way this pain and suffering follows your every pleasure. It is inevitable. It is always the case. But still, there's another level of the pursuit. And of course, Dr. Davy, as you well know, we have talked about all of this in extensive detail. But it's always good to say more about it. The next level of the pursuit of pleasure then simply occurs at the level of the mind now. Now you go on a search to find other strategies. You see, you start calculating now. You become very scientific about this whole process of pleasurizing yourself. You read volumes of books, looking for ways to combine stuff. You understand? You're like a mad scientist. You're trying to absorb all kinds of information. You're drawing on everything. And the purpose behind all of that is that you are feeling that if I can just find enough information and come up with the right answer, I'll be able to truly handle all this stuff in such a way that I will be happy. And of course you fail. Because the more knowledge you get, the more doubt it creates in you. Now you get knowledge to the point that you become confused. Now you're just confused. Bewildered. You don't know what to do. You become paralyzed from this over analysis that you become involved in. And that's even more suffering. You become a victim of doubt. You see. Happiness is never dependent on anything else. It is a non-dependent phenomenon. It is not occurring in time and space. Pleasure is human. It is at the level of an animal. Happiness is divine. It is your very nature. It is a part of your very being. Happiness is eternal. It is always the case. It does not wane and waft. It does not come and go. It is not involved in this process of duality at all. It is simply always already your state. It is there before you do anything. It is there while you are doing it, and it remains after you have finished doing it to the point of your own death. Even then, it remains after you have dropped this body. It is not in time and space at all. Happiness is total contentment. I like that brother word. He's very accurate about it. The experience of total commitment, unlimited, free, absolute freedom. A kind of vastness. As vast as the Buddha said, is the sky. It's a very different phenomenon. It's a very different phenomenon. And Dr. David, it's a good question, because that is what we're all really trying to find. We're calling that search for happiness the pursuit of God, the pursuit of religion, the pursuit of this, the pursuit of that. But fundamentally, we are all in pursuit of happiness. It is the common denominator and the foundation of all of our behavior, our motives. And the question becomes then, what are the causes of happiness and how to have it? And this requires a profound understanding of oneself. There is no book that you can resort to that will be useful until you have truly, truly, truly enter into this ordeal of self-observation to the point of self-understanding. If you have not understood yourself, you will not profit from any of your studies. You can read the Quran to the end of time. You can read the Bible to the end of time. You can come to meetings like this until the end of time, and you will not move 1 inch closer to attaining any happiness at all. It cannot happen. The study of these profound teachings and sayings that has come down to us from these gurus and adepts require as a prerequisite a profound understanding of yourself. Otherwise, you will not make any use of the teachings of the Dharma. You will not follow the guru. In fact, until you have truly entered into a profound level of self-understanding, you really don't need a guru. Now, this is the fact. Now, we have to talk truthfully about this. Because very often, those of us who come to the path, the first thing we want to do is convince the whole world you need a guru. Like you're convinced. What is this nonsense? What is this nonsense? You yourself are not convicted about it. And you cannot be convicted about it because you have not really even understood your circumstance and situation. You really haven't understood yourself. You're passing all kinds of books to each other. Read this book, read that book. This reading of this book cannot be any more useful than your degree of self-understanding. It really cannot. So you cannot bypass that process. You must really, truly understand yourself. And to the degree that you understand yourself, to that same degree you will be able to make right use of the Guru, of the teachings, of initiation, of the technology of happiness. You will stand in right relationship to it. You must find Shakti Devi, the basis of your own unhappiness. You must find out why are you so unhappy. You must really do that. You must get into it. Get into it. Get into it. Find out about all of that. You must observe yourself to the point of revelation. You must first have self-revelation before you can have God realization. How can it be otherwise? And you must see it. You must inspect your life and see the genesis and origin of your own unhappiness. You must truly see how you have failed to achieve happiness, and in the real sense of the word. You must see truly how you have never truly, fully felt happy under any circumstances or situation with any person. Period. And you must find out about that. That is what you must do. Study yourself. There are people lost in studying scriptures. Lost. Just lost in it. You see? But have never studied themselves. And you must do that. And then when you look into yourself, you will begin to see that your experience of unhappiness is your own activity. You will begin to see how you are doing that to yourself. You will see precisely how you are doing it to yourself. You follow me? Seeing it, you will simply transcend it. Seeing it is enough to move you beyond it. Now this is truly the case, but you must actually see it. You must see that you are always constantly preoccupied with trying to make yourself feel better at the level of your body, your emotions, and your mind. This very activity of trying to make yourself feel better is a form of self-possession. You are always thinking about your own suffering, and it's this constant thinking about your own suffering that is producing this suffering. You must take no thought for yourself. Literally. Christ the great mystic gave you the precise way out of this dilemma. Take no thought for yourself. Meaning, withdraw all of your attention off of your ego in its activities. Don't even think about yourself. And you will realize yourself for the first time. The self you've been thinking about and calling yourself is not yourself. It is a false thing. It is a pseudo-phenomenon. It is something that your mom and daddy made, your teacher, and the bully that beat you up made, and so forth and on. You see? It is Frankensteinian, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But it is not you. And you've been thinking it is you. When you take your attention off of the false self, you come into realization in the experience of your own self. And that experience of your own self is bliss. Nothing is required to be done by the real self to have the experience of bliss. Bliss is its nature. It's a profound danger. But this whole business about happiness is really the only business to be about. It's not about anything else. Life really, truly is not about anything else. You just want to be happy. But you don't know how to do it. And that's the bottom line. The adepts, the masters, the gurus, Sardar-Ji comes and show us the way how to attain happiness. That is all. That's all it's about. It is nothing else. Anything else to say about it?
Not much to say. Not much more to say.
Not much more to say? Are we done? Not yet? Dharma-ji? Not yet.
Well, I can say something. You were speaking on religion. I was having a conversation with someone that explains to me why they didn't like a certain church, Johnny Coleman Church at the Christ University. And this was new to me. I didn't know that they didn't teach heaven and hell there or whatever. But he was very strong on, I don't like this particular church. I don't like this church. I never go to that church because they don't believe in heaven and hell. And I was looking at him, and he noticed that I became a vegetarian, and I didn't want to get into the conversation with him about what my mind is focusing on because he wouldn't be able to understand it. So I asked him, why was that important that you believe in heaven and hell? And he said, well, you know, that's all that exists. It's heaven and hell. And so I said, well, what about what's existing now? You know, what are you doing right now to prepare for whatever is heaven and hell? And he said, well, I go to church, I'm born again, I'm saved. And I looked at him, you know, and just the light behind him because it's the majority of people that truly believe that you know, it's heaven and hell is free. I just crossed the aisle.
Well, that is what has caused many people to consider religion to be like a drug, if you will. It disorients people.
The thing with me is that particular situation is what made me become aware of religion, was the constant preoccupation, thought, thinking, heaven and hell.
everybody here said they going to heaven. He just raped his sister, and he said he's going to heaven because he's been forgiven. And I used, as a child, I said, I don't want to get there with these people. So, I didn't, you know, I didn't know whether heaven was better than hell. You know, I didn't. And so that particular thing.
But
is
of
what
course,
made me
it's
scared.
not the people's fault. The priests, the rabbi, the mullah, the pastor have simply exploited people, fears about it all. Exploited people, desperate search for happiness, has misled them. They are not to be faulted. It has been drummed into their minds long before they had any defense against it. You will meet people with 12 PhDs who feel the same. The conditioning is so strong. You see. We are not to have any contempt or make mockery about it. You see. One must be very compassionate about that. It is a tragedy. A tremendous tragedy. That is why in Buddhism, the Bodhisattva vow is aimed at attaining enlightenment not only for our own sake, but for the sake of these sentient beings who have become victims of this kind of religious fraud that is masquerading in the world today as being authentic paths towards God. Right? It is heartbreaking to see that. It is almost tantamount to having their souls stolen from them, isn't it? Their minds raped, made retarded. It is a sad situation. And sometimes you see, the damage to the mind has been so severe that there is no way to argue them out of that position. Because there is not an intellectual relationship. That is an emotional and very desperate pursuit on their part. It's like trying to take food from a starving person. How would you argue that person out of their little handful of bread when they haven't eaten in months? How would you do that? How would you philosophize them out of eating that bread, however filthy it may be? You can't do it like that. You can't do it like that. You can't give them lectures, more books to read. People are suffering, sister. Suffering is real. And they're turning to whatever means they can to find some relief, some consolation. And they get consolation from that. That this life has just been a complete fiasco, a complete failure. I am never going to be happy. I give up. And the only hope I got is to be happy in the next life in heaven. And that hope is what gives them the ability to just hang on and go through this process. It is very difficult. They are still dreaming. And the master does not even disturb them at all. Maharaj used to say that the saints, mystics come into this world for those who are tossing in their sleep. Those are the ones. They're struggling to wake up. You see, it is an uncomfortable sleep. They're coming in and out of wakefulness. Those are the ones for whom the Dharma is given. Those who are fast asleep, nothing can be done. And this is so. This is so. Christ, the great mystic, said, put it very beautifully, he says, do not cast pearls beneath the feet of swines. So you have to keep an eye out, Dynamite, for those who toss it. Huh? Those who are tossing. Those are the ones. Those are. And it has always been like this. Man has always been like this. And if it wasn't Jehovah or Allah, all right, then it was some Legbar this, or Ogun this, right? Or Chongo that. Some spirit somewhere performing the same function. And this will go on. This is the case. And we're really not different from those people. Now this is the real insight. You see. Because in spite of all of your knowledge, you're still suffering as much as they are. So it's really academic. You follow my point? It's really academic. But I used to say that everybody's suffering. The religious scholar, the person that don't know nothing about it. Everybody's suffering. Everybody's unhappy. Searching. And if we don't make religion out of Christianity, we'll make religion out of something else. We'll make it out of making money. You see, or something. You will make yourself some kind of religion. Something to function like religion in your life. In the West, we have done that with technology and science. And we have created a culture of scientism, which is the new religion. Scientism. Science can give you everything that your God couldn't. It can cure your cancer. It can take care of that broken back. It can do this and do that. And so now modern man and modern woman turns to science. Right? And what science has done to people's mind is even far more horrible than what false religion has done. It is something. You see? It is something.
Yes, Master, we have quite a few guests in the house who've been here for the first time. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to them about how our way is about actually doing stuff.
Yes.
And not about,
Yes.
you know.
Yes. Very good point. Thank you, Bhagwan-ji. Because it is important that it is made clear from the outset that the way that is offered at the House of Ra is not religion. It is not philosophy. It is not a class in metaphysics. It is not a forum to simply talk about mysticism and philosophy and things of that nature. It is a real process to be engaged in. At the time of initiation, if one decides, after hearing these arguments, that one is ready to experiment with it, when one receives initiation, one is given a real process to involve oneself in it. It requires some time. You have to devote some time to a practice called meditation. A minimum of 2 to 3 hours a day in, day out. No breaks, no vacation. It is a real discipline involved in this because there's a real physics going on. Right? Spiritual realization is a literal transformation of your energy at the level of body, emotions, and mind. So it's a very real process. And you will have to begin by putting some minimum disciplines on certain egoic behavior from the outset. You will have to get straight with your sex. You have to get your diet straight. You have to get your life straight. You have to get functional. The first thing required on this way that is offered here is you must get functional. You must get straight. Go get a job, get married, get straight, get functional, get sane. Because if you're insane, psychologically imbalanced, then you need to go get some help because you need sanity for this path. If you don't have it, you can't go anywhere. So it's about a real ordeal for Dr. Jesus. Vegetarianism is required. Teetotalism, no drugs, no alcohol. Morality, sexual discipline must be practiced. You must do that. You must become, by definition, a good human being. You understand? You cannot be talking all this nonsense about loving mankind. You can't even love your wife, your children. You understand? You got to get right. You got to get straight. You must get functional. That's the foundation. And then meditation, because that is the actual process that you must enter into. You must begin the practice of letting go of your ego on a daily basis. And little by little, you grow accustomed to the experience. It's like being trained to become an astronaut. It's a whole different trip, right? And you got to come to another level. You got to become very tough, very strong, psychologically, emotionally, intellectually, etc., etc. And for that kind of strength, you must practice. How are you going to become strong enough to transcend your ego if you don't practice? And you can't read books about it. It is where books stop. All book reading, all studying, all armchair analysis ends at the point of meditation. Now you must truly step into an entirely different dimension. You must walk the talk. You must walk the talk. You must truly sit down via this process that is meditation and discipline your egoic impulses and tendencies at the level of body, emotions, and mind. You must do that. There is no a way around that. There is nothing you can resort to make it easier. You must simply practice until you get tough enough to go through it. You must die as an ego to live as a real self. There simply is no other way. And this is what the process called for Bhagwan. And over these years, there has been many who have sat where you have sat, heard what you have heard, and cannot respond. Everybody will not respond. Because everybody is not looking for this. There are many who are just curious about it all. And are not able to therefore undergo the ordeal that is sadhana, meditation, discipline. The very word disciple means discipline. You must truly discipline yourself. Discipline these egoic tendencies. And so daily we are to practice a minimum of 2 to 3 hours until we attain the condition that is bliss. You're practicing to come into a state of bliss. And that's what it's all about. But you must be convicted first, you see. And that is why we offer these books, these talks, these tapes, and this gathering. It is simply to serve you in an intellectual way so that you can overcome your doubts and all of this stuff, you see. But this is not the process that is going on here. The process is meditation. And there will be nobody there with you. It's like death. Just like there'll be nobody when you die. Ma, I say, look, You got to do that by yourself, man. Right? Meditation is like that. It's something you got to do by yourself. You won't have no book to read. You won't be able to take notes on my dime. You have to put your pen away. You can't write nothing at that time. You can't take no notes on it because it's happening. You're in it now. You see, meditation is like that. Meditation is the conscious and deliberate duplication of the experience of death, of the ego. That's what meditation is. That's what it has always been. And that's why, again, Khufu, so few have followed the path. Have not followed the path. Many have wanted to follow the path. Yes. Many are called, yes, but only a few can really do that. And it has always been the case, just a few. Just a rare few. Because it requires a real, authentic discipline. And you have to do it alone. Can anybody else? You have to sit in this body and transcend this ego that is holding you in this body, holding you in all of the activities that you are obsessed with and involved in to the point of fascination. And you must give it up. You must let go of it. And if you do not have a very profound self-understanding, if you have not yet lost sympathy with your false self, if you're still clinging to your ego, holding on to it, so tolerant of yourself, lying to yourself, deceiving yourself, refusing to see the truth of the failure of your life to achieve happiness, you playing games with yourself, jacking yourself around, then you cannot be serious about it all. You have not yet become hopeless about the possibilities of finding happiness via your own egoic strategies and ambitions. You're not convicted about it yet. You may fringe all kinds of excuses. Oh, Bhagwan, I don't know enough. Bhagwan, I don't understand this. Oh, this is too profound. All of this is cover-up. I'm not taking in with none of that. You understand exactly what is required. You have understood it the first time you heard this Dharma. You are simply playing a game with yourself. I'll sit and okay, I won't say anything because I know that game is going to end. You're going to die. Do you understand? That's not going to be funny. That's not going to be philosophy then. There's going to be no metaphysics involved in that. You're going to die. This ego that you're trying to hold on to, this me that you are clinging to for dear life is on its way out of here. It will not survive this body. It is not being reincarnated again in the next birth. It don't come back no more. It is a one-shot phenomenon. And it is over. And if you don't have something, you think this is suffering now. You just wait. You just wait till you're floating somewhere in one of those bardos with all of these desires that you've got right now and absolutely no way to fulfill them. Wait until you see for yourself. You wait. You just wait. You will find out. You're going to find out about this thing. Everybody finds out. God is, equal in that way. Very democratic. Everybody gets a turn at death. Very, very democratic about it. And the question is, what you going to do? Further away, no organization is going to save you. I'm with this organization, Bhagwan. I'm with this organization. That organization will not be able to help you at the time of your death and dying. You are standing alone in that process. And how you going to handle it? Your pastor can't help you. I can't help you. Don't call me. Okay? When y'all die, do not call me. Okay? I don't want to be bothered. Leave me out of this. I am giving you all the help I am capable of giving you now. You see, so if you're going to call me while you are alive. Not when you're on your deathbed. It's too late. The Bible will not help you. The Quran will not help you. Your wife cannot help you. Your sister, your brother, nobody. Standing alone in that process. And you will lose your whole world. Listen to me, people. You're going to lose your whole world. Now, you're clinging to this little thing, and you can't give that up and do your practice. You're clinging to, oh, but when I can't give this up, I can't give this up and do this practice. You're going to give it up one day. I guarantee you're going to give it up. I can't take no time away from my children. Don't worry about it. Your children will be taken from you one day. You're going to give them up. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you. And don't think that you'll be the lucky one that just gets taken out like that. Don't trick yourself. Because some of you rascals are saying, well, Bhagwan, I ain't got to worry about that, because when I go, I'm going to go like that. No. Everybody gets to go through the whole process of dying. So you will start dying slowly. The physical body will start dissolving. And all of that ordeal that I have articulated in the books on Bhagwan, you will undergo that. Sight will start disappearing. Body start breaking down. Understand? Unbearable pain enters into you physically. You're going to go through all of that. Become full of regret, remorse, realizing you have simply wasted your whole life. You have wasted this precious human birth for what? Not really true. Not for what? Walking around arrogant, pretending that you are spiritual. Sardar-Ji, one of the best thing about the house, in my humble estimation, is here you don't have to pretend you're spiritual. You can drop it.
That's right.
It's not necessary. It has no value. We're all struggling souls here who have realized the urgency of becoming enlightened. There is no need to strut around deceiving yourself, pretending that you got something that when you know you don't have nothing. You see? I know as black people, see, we have a long history pretending that we have more than we really have. It's been a part of the consequence of the Holocaust that was the Ma'afa. It has been our way of trying to compensate for our own felt sense of inferiority, worthlessness. So we get very sharp and look successful, right? We imitate Wall Street, you see. We play the part, but actually, you see, we have no money. In the same way, you bring this same tendency to the pet. Now you play like you really got something spiritual, and in reality, you don't have nothing. And you got to deal with that. And it's up to you. It's entirely up to you. God is not going to interfere with you. Too much respect for you. Not going to interfere. God has infinity. In no hurry. No hurry. All the time that exists is there. No hurry. You're the one that can play the game with yourself. Mind games, philosophy games, religion games, talking games, so forth and so on. But that's not going to change the reality. And you will die like a coward, like a punk. Just like a punk. Yes, brother?
I'd like to ask you something. What do you think about Solomon in the Bible and the search for wisdom and peace and understanding?
Beautiful metaphor. A profound metaphor.
He faced the same dilemma as people face.
Sure. Solomon is an archetype, isn't he? There's some of Solomon in all of us. And that is the great thing about these kinds of stories and myths and metaphors that have survived over time. They tell us much about ourselves. And so when we read these books, you see, the only way we can make any use of them is to relate it to self, isn't it? But you must understand how there is something in you that is being dramatized in this story. You must have at least that much self-awareness, right? Otherwise, you can't get nothing from it. The book will remain a mystery, won't it? Shrouded, inaccessible. When we read these great books, metaphors from our of understanding of our own dilemma, it's like a key, and they become very instructive. Solomon is all of us. Solomon is all of us. And Solomon demonstrated this whole journey through all of these lesser strategies to attain happiness. Isn't that interesting? He demonstrated them. I mean, it is a story about a person's journey and all of the various levels of ego strategies. To appreciate my arguments on ego strategy, brother, I hope somebody has a copy of, what book is it in? Is it in Who Am I? Are there any books with the ego strategies in them? It is in there?
Who am I?
Who Am I? Acha. Someone gift to our brother that book. Because then you'll be able to appreciate the different stages that Solomon went through in search of who he was, his identity, how to find happiness, sought for it in women. I mean, he really did a good job there, didn't he? Right? Sought for it in knowledge, power. He did the whole thing. Didn't find it in any of it. But fortunately, he found the location of happiness in the divine. And so, hopefully you will visit us again and again. Certainly come at least once more in order to get the Ra Ananda Sutra from Dhammaj that will go into great details about the happiness, and someone will give to you, hopefully, today if there's a book available on Who Am I, so that you can become familiar with these strategies. And I try the same as the story of Moses, the same as the story of Muhammad. You see, if you read the life of any adept, any guru, any master, there is an ordeal involved in that process. There is a real struggle. It is ego transcendence going on. Christ, the great mystic, went through an ordeal. How do you think you're going to attain what Christ did sitting back in your armchair talking about it? Now you must stop this. You must stop this. Now you must see this nonsense. You must stop this. Now truly now. Now you must stop this. Now you must stop this. Nobody has attained it that did not go through the ordeal. You think you better than a Buddha? You think you better than Jesus? You think you better than Moses? Than Mohammed? Than Mahavir? Than Sajio Ba? Than Saint Teresa? Than Baha'u'llah? Than Dadu? Than Krishna? You think you better than these saints? You ain't better than these people. Who are you? How dare you? How dare you to try to get what these men and women gave up their lives to get. How dare you? Look at the arrogance of it all. Look at the arrogance in you. You want it for nothing, and people die for nothing. You don't want it. You want something spiritual for nothing, and that's your same attitude in the world. Look at yourself. Same attitude you have practiced in the world. You are always looking for something for nothing. You are always trying to circumvent, go around about things, trying to find the easy way in. You are always trying to slick yourself into some profitable situation or circumstance. This is exactly what you're doing in your real life. You are irresponsible. You don't want to accept responsibility for your own happiness. You want somebody to set it out for you. Now this is true. Now this is the truth. And you must lose all sympathy for that in yourself. You must cease being so tolerant of this aspect in your being. You must stop romanticizing it, glorifying it, using it as some kind of statement about your humility. That is not humility. You don't have no humility. How will you have humility? You're not no Buddha. A Buddha has humility. A Mahavir has humility. You don't have no humility. This is just more of your egoic nonsense that you are disguising as humility. It is bullshit, and I call you to see it. I call you to look at it. I call you to deal with it. You must get right. You must get right about this. A dead guru cannot challenge you on this. That's why you are fascinated with dead teachers. Dead gurus can't kick ass. Now you must deal with this thing. You must deal with it. Anything else to say?
That pretty much said it all.
Emma, where is Emma? Come. You scared of me?
I didn't hear you.
We're family. Now, you turn this way. Closer. Closer. It is truly quite an occasion for me to bestow Emma's big name on her. I have called her many things over the years. Even Big E is something that I have called her that has stuck. But of all the things that she has been called, she has never been called rightly for what she is. And I wish to set the record straight today. Now, those of you who know this woman just a little bit, knows that she is always in the back of her social demeanor very serious, isn't she? Very serious. She has tried all her life. It has been a struggle all her life for her to be social. Even as a little girl, she wouldn't come out and play. She wouldn't jump rope. She was serious about something else. She was never attracted by the click-clack and trivia. and the activities that other children lost themselves in. She was born like that. I bear witness to that. I was there. She was born into a world that could not make right use of that kind of seriousness. Because when a person is too serious, you don't like to be around them because they do not offer you any consolation. They do not entertain you, and you must be entertained, you see. You are always looking for some form of entertaining company to give you relief from your otherwise boring life. And Emma would never give in to this need for others to be entertained. And she struggled to hold on to that quality in herself. But because the world did not value it, and people did not value it, and she needed to have some kind of relationship with the world, slowly over these years, she started abandoning her real nature. Almost to the point that all of it had disappeared. And Maharaji caught her just before she had disappeared. Just a thread of her real nature was left. And he initiated. And from that moment, she has been climbing back toward herself. She has come close enough now to begin to feel her old self coming back for the first time in many years. And she never thought it would happen because she'd been through so much. There's been so much that has happened to destroy that quality. The world has been a great invitation to be frivolous, to be superficial, to be playing all the time, as if you got time to be playing. Serious. Always loving to go to the heart of things. Have you noticed? She always wanted to get to the heart of it. To the heart of the matter. Let's cut through all the other stuff. Let's get to the heart of it. She is Kamari, the pure-hearted. Now, not pure-hearted in this ordinary sense of the word, moral and all of these things, although she's moral too. But pure-hearted, focus on the heart of it, purely involved in the heart of things. Let's get to the bottom of things, bottom line, the heart of it. And what she must do now is to get to the heart of life. This name Kamari, Rani Kamari, queen of the heart of the matter, is to guide you. Become the Rani Kamari and get to the heart of life. Take care of the business for which you have been given this human. And let these fools play by themselves.
Shake them.
Guests are most welcome to come upstairs. I hope we have prepared some food for them.